The Texas House failed to reach a quorum yet again this morning as Democrats remain out of the state. In fact, several of them are participating in Fight the Trump Takeover protests throughout the country happening today. Now, Texas Dems could head back home as soon as this Monday. This as California formally introduced their new redistricting map in the fight. Meanwhile, Republicans are still moving full steam ahead with the mid-decade congressional map, all at Trump's orders. Already, Governor Abbott called for a second special session less than 2 hours after the first one was adjourned this week. Joining us now from Chicago, Texas State Representative Retta Bowers. She's one of the more than 50 Democrats who fled the state during the redistricting fallout. She's also a member of the Progressive Caucus. Representative Bowers, good to see you. Thanks for joining us tonight. So, the Texas House Speaker... Of course. The Texas House Speaker, Dustin Burrows, has warned that if Democrats try to come home, he thinks you're going to be arrested. Are you prepared for that?
We actually are. I mean, it's a civil arrest. We would be taken to the House floor and demanded that we make quorum. But we're preparing for that fight as well. We know that the work that we came to do here in the Chicago area the outcome is successful for us. We ended an entire special session, and that's what we set out to do.
Representative Bowers, in a perfect world, what does this energy and momentum look like in terms of galvanizing and organizing on the ground for the grassroots level? You've talked a little bit about the political implications and the legal implications just now with Antonia. But for people who are watching, who are inspired by the actions of Democrats in the Texas State House, what is the ask of them?
Wow. Thank you for that question. We realize that we have sounded the alarm. We have shed a national spotlight and brought it to the national stage. And so we do ask that people continue to stand up, rise up, fight back, fight to make sure that your voices can be heard and that you have the wherewithal to take your voice to the ballot box and vote for the representation that you want. We realize that these very racially gerrymandered maps will take away the voices of our constituents, and we are prepared to stand up and continue to fight for them, whether that's here protesting by this quorum break, or whether it's going to the floor or to the courts. We're preparing at every level to do what it takes to fight for our constituents.
Representative Bowers, there's a growing fear that it's not just about congressional maps, that Republicans, including the state representative Mitch Little in Texas, said that he wants to not just stop at congressional maps, but also expand to state legislators. I was wondering if you can talk about that and the idea of drawing a new map for the state legislator in Texas, how that would impact the state and representation within the state.
Well, this is already illegal. It's a mid-decade redrawing of maps and redistricting that we don't even do. We do this every 10 years, and that's constitutionally written that way. I appreciate what my colleague is saying, but people need to know that when you stand up to do a sacrificial move using that tool of breaking quorum, it goes without saying that you're sacrificing everything. So it really doesn't matter to us what they're going to come at us with. We'll go back when we go back with our demands, and we're ready to continue fighting in a unified way.
Could continuing the fight look like having to leave the state again? And I ask because, one of the things Texas is, of course, looking to right now is the action that Gavin Newsom in California is taking. But that depends on voters actually approving that step. So in the event that voters don't allow California to do this, Texas does move ahead. This could put not just Texas Democrats, but Democrats across the nation in peril.
Absolutely. That is what we have known. I'm proud to be a member that was asked to go to that meeting with Governor Newsom on that second delegation trip. And they do have an independent redistricting commission out there. And this means that, you know, what California is doing triggers Illinois, triggers New York. So this is a national movement. That is what we set out to do. This might have been first happening in Texas, but we knew that it was going to go across the nation. The Indiana House members came and met with us as well. People do recognize that this is a steal, a cheat, a power grab, and it's racially motivated.
To that last point about the racial motivations and the undertones that we are looking at as far as this attempt to sort of mid-season do this redistricting, has there been any success in terms of having conversations with your Republican colleagues across the aisle to de-escalate the rhetoric or to talk about the fact that these efforts would literally disenfranchise tens of thousands of voters of color, specifically black voters in the state of Texas? What has that conversation been like?
You know, those conversations are happening, and we are preparing to go back to the floor to have these fights.
I think we became a little bit complacent over the years. We assumed that things would continue to get better, that our democracy would become more inclusive, that it would become more fair. What we forgot is that history doesn't always move in a straight line, and it's not always 2 steps forward and another 2 steps forward. Precious democracy that we've got is not a given. It's not self-executing. It requires us to fight for it.
President Obama there encouraging Texas Democrats to keep fighting against gerrymandering in their state and urging Democrats across the country to take the initiative to preserve democracy. And back with us now, Megan Hayes and Matthew Dowd. So, Megan, President Obama has been kind of wading back into politics over this last year, of course, endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris, weighing in on this redistricting battle, reaching out, in fact, to a mayoral candidate, which we're going to get to in just a minute. But why now? Is his the voice that has been needed?
I think that the former president, has been doing a lot behind the scenes, and we just haven't been seeing it, right? He's been making these phone calls, just like he did to Mamdani, and he's been making phone calls to other people who are participating in democracy and giving advice as we move through a really tenuous time. So I don't necessarily think he has stepped out. I just think he sort of stepped out of the public eye. But I do think it is important to have a leader's voice right now, and I don't think that people are stepping up in the way that they should be. And I think he is filling that void for a lot of Democrats across the country. So I applaud him for being more forward-facing, especially with the redistricting. It's going to become not just important in this cycle, but as we move into the census in 2030, I think Democrats are going to have a really tough fight on their hands. Yeah, well, as he's alluding to, it's about preserving democracy, because that's big. So, Matthew, as we go off that, California Governor Gavin Newsom was certainly fired up, announcing that California is going to hold a fall special election on a new congressional map. Here's part of what he said this week. Listen up.
Today is Liberation Day in the state of California. And as Senator Schiff said, Donald Trump, you have poked the bear, and we will punch back. And here we are, an open in plain sight before one vote is cast in the 2026 midterm election. And here he is once again trying to rig the system. He doesn't play by a different set of rules. He doesn't believe in the rules. We can't stand back and watch this democracy disappear district by district all across this country.
Of course, this in response to President Trump pushing to get 5 more GOP seats in Texas to keep the Republican majority in the House. Are independent redistricting commissions, are they done? Do Democrats have anything to lose by matching Republican actions and then gerrymandering blue states?
Well, I hope not, Alex. I mean, I actually think the way to go in this is have a national independent redistricting commission that draws federal districts. That is the way to go. And I think what California did before was the way to go at that time. What Michigan has done, the independent redistricting commissions, where you get politicians out of drawing lines, and then you draw districts that are actually compact, and the people, there's a sense of why their people are grouped together in those districts. And you have way more swing districts, which means there's way more likelihood that people in a general election, people will show up and their vote will matter because it's not in a deep red district or a deep blue district. But I think in this moment, that the idea of Democrats doing the right thing in a given state and Republicans rigging in other states along in our state of our union is a point in time. Democrats can't unilaterally, in my view, disarm in this moment, because if they do, they'll no longer hold power in the House or the Senate as they go forward. So they have to actually meet the Republicans where they are today. But hopefully, over time, we all understand that an independent redistricting model nationally is the way to go.
And Matthew, Megan touched on this, but the New York Times report.
Why else would you make the phone call? He's a failed president. Who else sends ICE same time having a conversation like this? Someone who's weak. Someone who's broken. Someone whose weakness is masquerading as strength. The most unpopular president in modern history. An economy that's collapsing all around him. You saw the new wholesale prices going up almost a full percentage point today. Inflation is going up. Job creation is going down. He's trying to rewrite history, Smithsonian, censoring historical facts. And in the spirit of what Adam Schiff said, he's trying to put America in reverse on voting rights, civil rights, LGBTQ rights, on women's rights. He wants to bring us back to a pre-1960s world. That's what this is all about. It's about power. And I want to end on this. And we are about to give power back to the people.
What we're witnessing here is Donald getting hit back. That his strategy in Texas has failed, but what it has done is wake up Democrats. Democrats making it very clear. They're being honest about this, and I agree. This is something that I think has sort of united the broad spectrum of the Democratic Party, right? Which is a very big tent. And often the moderates are wrong. I think they're wrong more often than the progressives, and I think they often align too closely with Republicans on economic issues. But here you have everyone making a very clear, consistent point. Gerrymandering is bad. Politicians should not be able to pick their voters. Voters pick their politicians. That's how it works in a democracy. You need independent, non-biased, scientifically based experts to determine districts as best they can. It'll never be perfect, but it'll be better than the gerrymandered alternative. But until you get to that point, it doesn't make sense that many of the blue states follow the rules and almost none of the red states do. That's just unilateral disarmament against a bad faith opponent. And that's stupid. It's actually stupid. I'm sorry, but if you believe that Democrats should not gerrymander in direct response to Republicans not only already gerrymandering, but gerrymandering harder and doing so in between cycles, because the general rule is every 10 years you redraw districts, because every 10 years seats are reappointed. Some states gain seats, some states lose seats, most states stay the same, but population moves around between and within states. And as such, certain areas of your state might be much more populated. Say you're in a state and you have the same amount of seats, but say you're in Tennessee and say Nashville really grew a lot in the last 10 years. You should probably put another Congress seat centered more around there, and maybe the rural area loses some representation, but that's just democracy. Happens every 10 years, because doing it every 2 years leads to this cycle of recrimination. And so, Republicans started this, and now I think, hopefully, Democrats will finish it.